Hi, I'm Taylor Botello. I also decided to do an informal video to talk about the interview process, which is kind of fitting because the interview ended up being, it was formal as far as the questions went and the direction I was trying to take the interview, which actually ended up being a little bit off of how maybe I should have gone about it. And what I mean by that is like when I asked, his name is Bo Stem, and so I should tell you about what I'm doing. His name is Bo Stem, and him and his wife are the executive chairs for a nonprofit that is a dance studio. Their dance studio is called Groove Nation. It's in Vancouver, Washington, and then the associated nonprofit, well, the most directly associated nonprofit is called New Groove. And through New Groove, they seek to help, they say they'd like to train the student before the dancer, or train the person up first. And they try to give students who are disadvantaged economically or could not afford dance training or an organized sport or that kind of activity a way to do so by giving them scholarships. Last year they gave out $35,000 from their own pocket for scholarships. And through the conversation we talked about how their board of directors and their advisory board was uncomfortable with the way they were fundraising, partially because they had a system set up which on the ground worked out for people where the students would help clean the studio. If they were older high school students, they'd help teach younger students for free, but in lieu of paying for tuition, which is much more than they'd make like per hour. However, that's not how you can go about things directly. So that was part of why I was talking to Bo, is because he was interested in how grant writing works. And I mean, I'm in the class when her grant writing works too, so it was interesting because I was so nervous to talk to an executive of a nonprofit, but they were actually more curious about how the grant writing process went than I thought, and it led me to thinking about how if I talked to smaller nonprofits, they would be, just more human, like easier to talk to than I assumed. And also that I'm excited to be learning real skills that can help nonprofits out when it comes to fundraising, and that I could feel more confident next time going to talk to somebody and encourage them to seek out grant applications, because they had a grant writer who wanted to help them out and was applying for a community pot of funding from Walmart, but then the grant writer just kind of stopped at the end, and so it fell apart. But the director thought they needed a professional certified grant writer to do the rest of the job, and for that reason they didn't continue to seek funding. And I think, funding through that particular grant. And I think the last thing I want to share, because it was so cool to me, that I learned was when I asked Bo how they go about fundraising, and he said they lean into their strengths as an organization, and considering that they're dancers, they put on dance shows, and they do a really good job. The students all help out, and they are connected with another nonprofit which addresses human trafficking, both one based in Cambodia and one based in the Vancouver-Portland area, along the I-5 corridor. So they connect the idea of like empowering predominantly young women and young dancers, and with the idea of like other predominantly young women who are at risk. So I liked the idea of leaning into your strengths. I learned that it is less formal and more formal than I assumed, and it encouraged me to really want to know how to get grants going. Thank you for listening to me, and have a good night.